Hello, good evening, everyone. This is Dan and Rebecca from Atticus Academy of Animals. Welcome to our first podcast in a while, actually. We've had some other exciting projects that we've been working on, which unfortunately has taken us away from these podcasts, but we should be getting them back up and running now for the foreseeable future. So, first up, again, apologies, we haven't got a jingle. We wanted to get one done, but we've been a bit rubbish, so we won't sing this time.
Okay. Oh, hi, Salem.
Yes, I was gonna say we've got Salem trying to make an entrance there. Tonight we have Mike Bennett from Raw Feeders of Great Britain coming to talk to us about all things raw feeding. So welcome, Mike. Hello.
Hello, thanks for having me. It's nice to be on somebody else's podcast, so thank you.
You're very, very welcome. So, for anybody that doesn't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, that's yeah, have we got long enough? So basically, in a nutshell, I'm the founder of the Raw Feeds of Great Britain. I started it around 7 years ago. But the backstory behind that is because when I went down the raw feeding journey, so to speak, I found myself in a lot of groups, and I started taking their advice as gospel, and I was following it. And I was getting a lot of what I call bumps in the road. And I was like, what's going on here? So I kept reading more and more and more independent research, hitting the library books, connecting to the relevant professionals within the industry, just to dive a little bit deeper. And I realized there was a lot of bad guidance out there that I was following, but I didn't know any better. And it soon became apparent that it was their way or no way. As soon as you stepped out of their guidance, so to speak, it became very militant, very cult-like. And I found myself banned from a lot of groups just for challenging the narrative. So I thought, sod it, I'll start my own. Um, and yeah, like I said, 7 years later, I've now officially started my podcast, which I've been planning on doing for years. But I dove straight in, and I'll be honest with you, I'm winging every single step of it. But I'm trying to get as
Us
many
too.
people on there. Yeah, it's a minefield. Like I said, technology and stuff isn't my forte. I'm not good with SEO or anything like that. I just wing that side of stuff and cross my fingers and hope for the best. Because yeah, dogs, cats, ferrets and stuff, that's up here. The
Mhm.
technology side isn't, and that's moving faster than I can keep up with. It's always changing. You can't keep the algorithms happy. So
Yeah.
it is what it is. And I'm just
Because
happy with anyone that sees.
you very much go from of an angle of what is right rather than what essentially people suggest are right, aren't you? You kind of it's what's best for that individual animal and everything else, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so it's all about feeding the dog or the cat or the ferret in front of you. What works for one won't work for another. And that's another reason why I keep like therapeutic guidance away from the group because it can be completely detrimental. If somebody says, oh, do X, Y, and Z if your dog has got this, and somebody follows it, it can be detrimental to them. Just because it's worked for their dog, it might not work for somebody else's. And that can potentially lead to a vet bill as well. So I try and stay away from it. Um, but I used to say there's more than one way to skin a cat, but given the context and things, I've changed it to peel a potato because I think that's more appropriate. Um, but there's many ways of doing things, and I myself have got my way. And my other admins and moderators on the groups, they've got their way. We don't all do the same things, but we try and align as best as we can. Um, and thankfully, we're all on similar footings. But as long as we're all going to the same destination, that's fine. But one thing we won't do is argue between like amongst ourselves within the chats or even allow arguing because it just creates a toxic environment. The last thing we want is somebody transitioning from a kibble, so to speak, onto a fresh food and not knowing which way to look, constantly looking left and right, who's right and who's wrong. So the way we try and educate people is this is what we do. This could work for you. There's no absolutes at all because I don't talk in absolutes
Mhm.
because you can't. It's very, very grey. There's no black and white. And when people start talking like it's black and white, that's when you get onto a slippery slope. So, yeah, that's why I try and keep it as grounded as best as I can. I'm really diplomatic and I don't stand for nonsense anymore. I used to be a bit of a people pleaser, and if people were disrespectful to me, I used to try and kill them with kindness. Now I don't. I just block them, get rid of them, because I don't want them bad apples in the group.
Yeah.
If they can't be kind, and that's my hardest rule. If you can't be kind, you're gone.
I mean,
Simple as
there's
that.
just no need for it, is there? I mean, I see it all the time in the shop. Rebecca's in the shop with me on the Monday. You know, we get so many people who, and I think militant is the right word to use your word, you know, to a brand, to a type of food, to a way of doing it. And as you say, there's just so many different ways of doing it, and there is no right or wrong. It's no different to you know, I mean, fortunately my mum's not watching this one today, but you know, she can't eat strawberries, I can. You know, there's no different. We're both human, but she can eat something or she can't eat something that I can. It's
Yeah.
exactly the same with dogs, isn't it? And
No,
cats, obviously.
exactly. And I did. I've removed it now, but I did create like a free ebook. I've removed it so I can rewrite it. 'Cause a lot of it was dated because it was a lot of documents basically that I'd written over the years and put into one free ebook, and a lot of it needed redoing. So I've just removed it for now. But part of that was basically don't feed, like what like plant matter not to feed. But this was because I was trying to make it safe for 95% of the people that was reading, because I don't know their dogs from Adam. And
Hmm.
certain plant matter can trigger certain things. For example, if a dog's yeasty, certain plant matter can promote the growth of the yeast internally. So I'd rather advise people not to feed that as a generic standpoint, just on the off chance. And I often tell people not to copy me, because what I feed my own dog also contradicted the guidelines, because I know my dog is an individual. I don't know theirs. The last thing I'd want them to do is to follow a guidance that I've done and then hit a bump in the road and end up with a potential vet bill, because there's nothing worse than getting a yeast issue that's uncontrollable and you'd be back and forth from the vet, spending God knows how much money, potentially even medicating with things like Cytopoint and things like that. And we don't want that. So I try and keep the guidance as simplistic as I can, and make sure it's safe enough for the majority of dogs, well, owners of dogs that are on the group are going to follow it. They'll be fine. They won't get the bumps in the road. As soon as you deviate from that, you can get the bumps in the road, but that's at least you've got a solid foundation to work with, and then it's trial and error. And if you do get a bump in the road, you can go back to basics, if that makes sense, and just
Absolutely.
strip it right back. Because so many people, especially with the social media and TikTok and things like that, they jump on things because it's trending. Oh, everybody else is doing this, so I'm going to do it. But it might not be good for your dog.
No.
And you'll see a lot of people that there's more supplements and whole foods in bowls these days, and it grinds my gears, because just because supplement out that's trending and people promoting it, trying to get commission through TikTok shop, things like that, they don't know your dog's an individual. It could be the worst thing you can give your dog, but yet you're buying it anyway.
Hmm.
And that's why I try and do content to stop people doing that and try and get them to dig a little bit deeper, because all supplements should be given with intent and also the right dose. If you have got a therapeutic need, get the right dose. Find out exactly what you need to give. Don't just add it in willy nilly and hope for the best, because you're just wasting your money half the time.
Hmm. So do you find that there's like an issue that comes up most often? Or, you know, is there like one particular thing that you hear more often than not that people are looking for help with?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. Yeah, it is yeasty dogs. They're typically the main reason why people switch away from high carby foods, because obviously carbs digest as glucose and just going to fuel yeast. Um, but again, it's switching to raw. It's not a magic cure. Again, I'm transparent about that. I'm an advocate for raw, but it's not for all dogs, and I wouldn't recommend it for all dogs either. Um, but like dogs with autoimmune conditions and things like that, they might be better on a lightly cooked food rather than raw itself. So yeah, that's another thing that annoys me as well, is that when raw is marketed like a fix-all cure, it's not. It's
Hmm.
got its limitations, and it's not for every dog, not for every cat, and not for every household. Not somebody might have an autoimmune condition themselves, and although raw is really, really rigorously tested for pathogens and things like that, mistakes can happen
Of
and
course.
things can be present. A dog, a healthy dog can handle things like salmonella, E. coli, stuff without any issues at all. Like, they won't get sick. Their own, on the other hand, might get sick. And it's knowing that the whole picture of what to recommend, whether it's cooked or raw. And without knowing that, you can potentially cause some issues. And especially when people, like I said, they're buying stuff like human, well, I say human meats that are meant for human consumption for like Tesco's, Asda's, or whatever. If they're buying them straight from the fridge and they've not been previously frozen, there's a potential parasite risk there. Our food's meant to be cooked. We don't eat it raw. So that eliminates that. They don't have to worry about the parasite side of it because we're cooking it. But giving it to a dog raw straight out of the packet, that can cause a bit of a problem. And it's little things like that that people need to be aware of because they can cause that detriment to their own dog accidentally, unintentionally, purely because they're either trying to save money or they just simply didn't know.
And again, we see that regularly in the shop that, it does cost a little bit more money sometimes to get these things from a pet shop or to get certain brands. Obviously, there's certain raw brands that are more expensive than others for various reasons, which I won't go into because some of it could be marketing, some of it could be whatever. Ultimately there's always a reason behind it, but we see a lot of people trying to make it a little bit cheaper. So that's a really, really good sort of tip for them to for a way to people to kind of be aware of certain issues if you do try and make it too cheap, i.e. from the supermarket kind of thing.
Well,
Yeah,
you
so
get it
if
from
people
raw
have
companies, don't you? That some of the raw companies, I think me and you were talking about this the other day, Mike, is, sometimes it can seem like it's too good to be true. If you're paying like £2 for a kilo of meat, there's something wrong. We need to be really, really careful of kind of looking at the cheap amount. I'd kind of
yeah,
rather people mix stuff, like get a decent cold pressed or something and than get like, meat that they really don't know where it's coming from, and because that can cause a whole host of problems.
yeah, it definitely can. Now, with the raw brands at the moment, there's some brilliant ones out there, and there is some poor ones. But it's the same in every business. You're going to get people that are obviously doing the best that they can. But the ones that tend to shine out the most to me is ones that offer full transparency. They can tell you about if they're getting their meats from, so UK farms directly from an abattoir, or even if they're importing from the EU, someone transparent on that. And I'd rather somebody be transparent on that than pretend that it's UK farmed when it isn't, if that makes sense. So you'll see a lot of content I do as well is about this race to the bottom. That you see a lot of these brands coming up out the woodwork now, and they're knocking out like 500 grams for like a pound. And to me, I can't fathom how, unless what they're putting in it is crap,
Hmm.
in a sense. And
Yeah.
that's basically we stepped into the raw side of it to get away from giving dogs crap. So years ago, there was rumors about all like kibble companies and stuff. They basically got the last dregs of what us humans didn't eat, and hence you got the meat and animal derivatives and things like that. But if you're just going to feed the fresher version of of that crap, what's the point? Do you know what I mean? You're still feeding crap, and the fact that people don't know exactly what's in it, yeah, they can say, oh, it's say 100% beef, but beef what? There's no breakdown. The labeling's absolutely poor. It's pants, and a lot of the places where they may be cutting corners is on things like analytical testing, and you need that. You can't just copy somebody else's or go and have typical ones and like a copy and paste job because it's not accurate. It's not fair. It's misleading. And I do think people that do produce raw, they've got a bigger responsibility to get things right and to make sure you've got high quality foods in there. Because if they haven't, then I personally think that they should be formulating, paying for it to be formulated, and have synthetics in there to bridge gaps that are not there. Because if they're just using crappy stuff, low quality stuff, the nutrition side of it's not going to be that great either. Especially when it comes down to like your amino acids and things like that. And that's what's important. That's what dogs need. They say oh they need protein, but it's not. It's amino acids that they need, and they need essential amino acids that are listed. And I can't remember off the top of my head because I'm not Rain Man, but I have got a list of them in the group. And what I did put together was all the essential nutrients that cats and dogs need in the amounts of per, I think it was per 10 kilo of body weight, but people can work it out and basically sources of. And as long as you're rotating those sources, you'll be on a strong footing. It's not going to be perfect, but you'll be on a strong footing.
Well,
So
that's
I'm
an
rather,
amazing base, though, isn't it,
Yeah.
Mike? I mean, I always say well, I think we have to be more careful with dogs than we are ourselves for various reasons. They live a lot less than we do, and we're responsible for their diet. But at the same time, I think we can also become a little bit too obsessed with how accurate everything has to be. We're not like that with us. So as long as we've got, as you're saying, those form, we know, and we're rotating between those kind of good meats and as you say, the quality of those meats as well. So we know what cuts they are. We're not getting just, scraps that are not going to have all of the nutrients that a dog needs, then, that's kind of the best we can do. We can, it's a good, as you say, it's a good footing, isn't it, to start on? Because I think the other side of it is we panic people. I think a lot of raw feeding can panic people that they're not getting the right nutrients in. It's almost like if you don't have like this exact perfect looking bowl, you're going to kill your dogs because there's not the right nutrients in. I mean, if we were that obsessed with ourselves, we'd be well, we'd probably be a lot healthier actually. But
not exactly that. And I get the whole premise of complete and balanced, but
absolutely.
only from a commercial aspect, because for liability, they don't want to get sued and things like that. And they still make mistakes, especially with the synthetic formulas, when it's more bioavailable than they thought it was. For example, the vitamin D scandal a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
But from an individual perspective, day by day, it doesn't need to be complete and balanced. I'd say ideally you want to be ticking all the boxes over a week, ideally. But it doesn't matter if if you're a bit low on something one week, it's not that big of a deal. It's not something you want to get stressed over, because these deficiencies that people talk about can take months to manifest, months, and that's months of it being deficient, not just missing a week here, missing a week there. The body doesn't work like that. It's not got a clocking in system. It doesn't run like on precision like people make out it does. And that's another thing
Yeah.
that I find frustrating as well. The people that do overcomplicate it and expect people to have a spreadsheet to feed the dog. It's far, far, far been made complicated so people can fearmonger. And 9 times out of 10, trying to sell like services, formulation services. Oh, if you don't want to do it, we'll do it for you. That type of thing. And I just think it's bad and it's misleading. Ian Billinghurst, he's probably one of the best ones around here right now that are just saying it how it is. He's saying it's people are overcomplicating it, but even he's got into the all digital side of it now to sell a course because he wants people to learn from the right places, and at least the learning straight from the horse's mouth. If you're a bar follower, well, learn directly from him, and that makes sense. Why not do that? Why pay somebody else when you can get straight from the horse's mouth? So
I think the
yeah,
other interesting thing as well, sorry to cut in, you obviously talk about meat and animal derivatives just now. And when I first started 30 years ago in the industry, it was very much meat and animal derivatives were, as you say, terrible. We don't want it. It's really bad quality. Well, most of what we class as meat and animal derivatives then is what we now class as natural treats. So now what is meat and animal derivatives now? If all that stuff has a value, then it's everything. It's things like the eyeballs, the brains, the hooves, or even the hooves have got value now. So it is literally, if that's the stuff they're putting into to the fresh food, the raw food, to make it cheaper, it is literally the actual dregs that we just wouldn't want to have in volume. Obviously any of these things are okay in a small amount, but in volume, we just wouldn't want it. So it's, yeah, you're absolutely right that it needs to be the right blend and formulation of it.
yeah, don't get wrong. Those things, certain things, they're great on rotation. But as if they're taking up the bulk of the
Mm.
diet without much variation, it's It's not a good thing at all long term. And it's when these brands as well, they'll label it complete when it's not. Complete in the fresh feeding world for some reason just means 80-10-10, which is a far cry from being complete and balanced. Complete is actually legally protected. It needs to be complete and balanced under FEDIAF, under their guidelines of what they call complete and balanced. If you can't prove that, you can't use that label, but yet many are. And
Well, I'm seeing
trading
ones
standards,
using that, Mike, that have literally got meat and like maybe a bit of liver in that haven't even got bone in, which I mean, that's even scarier. I mean, at least with the 80-10-10s, we've got like a bit of a basis of a blooming, it's not complete, obviously, but and that's what's scary. I did it the other day. I picked up some food and I thought, oh, I'm just gonna, because I quite often DIY, and I thought, I'm just gonna get this. And when I got it home and kind of looked at it, I was like, it's saying it's complete and it's got no bone in it. Like, how is that even? It's really bad. It's very misleading. So yeah, it's really unfair, isn't it, on the general public that it's made so complicated because it really doesn't need to be complicated. It shouldn't be complicated. I mean, it should be quite simple, really. I mean, dogs are a lot more simple to feed than humans. We managed to do it for ourselves and our kids. So we should be able to do it for dogs. And ferrets and cats, they're even easier. So, it shouldn't, it has been made into this massive thing. As soon as money's involved, though, things become more complicated because people want to make money out of it, don't they? So it's
it
yeah.
does. You're right, and that's exactly why I don't put this group behind a paywall. I was talking about it because obviously got to keep the lights on and all that. Do you know what I mean? But then I thought no, because as soon as money's involved, you can easily be swayed. You can start being biased, and I'd rather be fully transparent and just help people for free as best as I can. Now, obviously, that's not talk about therapeutic stuff. I signpost for that stuff as best I can to the right professionals to help them, because generic guidance will not cut it, and they should not be following it. Um, so yeah, it's all about making sure people are reading the right stuff that's got logic behind it. And by all means, I'm always open to be corrected. I don't mind people telling me, "Oh, by the way, have you read X, Y, and Z like study and things like that?" And I'll read it and I'll hold my hand and say, "You know what? I was wrong. I've, this has been this has come out since I've learned about this, and I don't mind doing that. I eat humble pie a lot, but my biggest, like I said, my biggest focus is just trying to keep a group that's not toxic, and just trying to keep it friendly and just engaging and a real community spirit behind it, rather than being so militant on what you can and can't feed. Yeah, I'll tip the basic stuff, but the rest of that is down to you to engage, ask questions. Let's dig deeper together. Let's learn together. It's not my way is the only way. I've got my way. Tell me your way, and let's see what's working across the board observationally, because that just proves itself that it's not just black and white. They might be doing something that I never would. Works for their dog, and yeah, that's all that matters. As long as you feed the individual in front of you and apply whatever feeding model you want and work within your own means. Don't break your bank trying to feed your dog and then sacrifice food for yourself, for example, which I've seen people do, which I find that very, very heartbreaking. I'd rather people, like you say, even if you did have to feed, say, a couple of these really budget raws, just help spread the cost a little bit. That's fine. Nothing wrong with
I
that.
always say
It's
to
just
people, add fillers. Like, I'm not being funny. You've got people on dried food feeding kibble with like rices and oats and all of these other things in them. And as soon as people feed fresh, it's almost like it has to be this high percentage of meat. And well, actually, I mean, I've said to so many of my clients that I work with, if you are on a budget, add some fillers. You're still feeding fresh food. There are still it's still better than buying your bakers from your supermarket. If you're feeding nice amounts of meat, but then topping it up with other things, that's, blimey, the dogs have lived for thousands of years on worse than that. So, it does become too militant and it becomes elitist. And I think
yeah,
that's one of the things that I really don't like about Raw is that there is a very elitist kind of idea that you have to do it one way and that's the only way. And it's just it limits people and it limits dogs. It stops dogs from being on healthy diets. It doesn't have to be ridiculously expensive. You know, there are cheaper ways of doing it. As you say, Mike, you know, it's you don't have to be silly with it.
No, you don't. And like I said, people that mix the two are more than welcome in the group as well. I'd much rather people mix the two than just feed 100% kibble. And a lot of people,
Yeah.
again, it's all or nothing. They completely slam kibble. And I'll be honest with you, I used to be one of those people because, like I said, it came from a lot of pain and frustration. Just a bit before I started the group, I used to be completely anti-kibble. But now I've stepped back and I've looked at that and go, do you know what? When it comes down to accessibility, people's confidence, it is easier and it's convenient and I get it. But then there's the whole making sure people are storing kibble correctly because that can be detrimental if you store it wrong. So
Yes.
yeah, there's a lot of things that can make a big difference. Because like I say, if you store kibble incorrectly and you're allowing the fats to become rancid and you've got the mycotoxins developing, they're gonna cause an upset stomach, and the people are going to think that's a protein issue, and they're going to start swapping proteins of the kibble when it's not. It's just a storage thing because a lot of people decant it into these big plastic bins again to make life easier. That's the worst thing you can do for a kibble.
Yeah.
Well, sadly, because I'm really enjoying this conversation. This has been fascinating for me, but we are out of time for this podcast,
Yeah.
unfortunately. So before we go, what would be your top three? And I know obviously is dog dependent, but what would be your top three tips for anybody that's considering starting to feed raw? Yeah, for the best way to go about it.
First thing, John the Raw feeds a Great Britain, obviously.
Obviously.
Perfect answer.
Second thing is don't overthink it. Just research. Don't take anything you read online as gospel. Dig deeper. Look away from social media. Look on Amazon. Buy books that are relative and things like that. Just dig a little bit deeper. The worst thing you can do is get into a group that's a bit cult-like and get led down a rabbit hole. And then as soon as you start asking questions, you're going to get shouted at because all the information's in their files and they expect people to read it. But everybody learns that way. I don't. Bores me. So yeah, just do your research, reach out to people that can help you, and just build on a community that you align with. My group might not be for everyone. Some people might like the drama, and that's fine too. Like Johnny, whatever floats your boat and all that. Just make sure you've got a community around you that can support you, and you've got somewhere to fire questions off to in a timely manner. Or even, like I said, find reputable YouTube channels that can help you. There's a lot of, like I said, the Nick Thompson's got a lot of stuff for the Raw Feeding Veteran Society. There's a lot of tutorials and things like that that can help. And I think the third one I'll have to say is just don't overthink it. Take each day as it comes. And if you haven't got the confidence, don't switch straight away. Do your research first and then switch. Because there's nothing worse than starting it and then winging it. Build up your knowledge first and then switch. And yeah, that's what my top three.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Mike Bennett from Raw Feeds Great Britain. You've been a wonderful guest, and thank you for being my first as the official head presenter, I'm guessing. But yeah, thank you so much. It's been wonderful to see you. Everybody that's thinking of going raw feeding, check out Raw Feeders of Great Britain. Really knowledgeable team, and yeah, thank you so much for your time.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you. But yeah, enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you, and you. Take
Lovely to
care.
see you, Mike. See you
Yeah,
soon.
you too. See you later.
Bye, guys.
Bye.